welcome everybody. Welcome to Horror Nights. All you spooky folks out there, love this time of the year. All the horror movies are out, all the platforms, everybody putting out films, one after another. And I have to say, it gives great opportunity to find films or to watch films that you might not watch all the year round. Now, granted, I do collect physical media, so if it's a movie that I enjoy, I make sure to own a hard copy of that. Sometimes multiple, depending on their releases. 4Ks and stuff, they get re-released or upgraded. I make the upgrades. Sometimes I like the exclusive poster and artwork. Arrow does a great job. Shout Factory does a great job. A lot of these companies do great jobs with some of their collector stuff. Umbrella. I've bought a few of different things, but yeah, this time of year though, I always like to go back to some old favorite films. Halloween. It's Halloween. Halloween. The movie itself, perfect for this time of year. Obviously, 1978 version, one, two, three, four. That whole series, everything up. I would say until whatever that reboot was. I'm not a fan of any of those reboots. I think they're terrible. I think they're trash. I don't think they should have been made. I think it killed whatever idea of Michael Myers was there. Like everything about it, burn mass. It's just like no. Give me my original stuff. Give me my old stuff. Like I said, even three. I know a lot of people give three shit, but honestly, Wallace I think did an amazing job with that. Made a really great film. Atkins was amazing. I just went a while back to CT Horror, and there was a nice panel about that whole thing, and everybody was talking about it, and it was a hell of a movie. I know it wasn't what people wanted at the time, but I think looking back now that it is it worked because it was what Carpenter kind of did want. But Halloween, great film. Nightmare on Elm Street series, great series to watch as well. But there's other Halloween based films now to watch. You can watch like Trick or Treat or Trick or Treat, both classics. Trick or Treat, more of less, not so much of a Halloween film, more of a revenge film for me. But Trick or Treat, um, great horror film. You have Sam, basically the essence of Halloween, and he's out there. It is well, he's out there telling kind of a story, or the story's about it. It's an anthology style. I also like All Hallows Eve. Damien Leone's first. Really, and Art the Clown's really first kind of film there. And the Terrifier series, I have to say I wasn't originally a fan of Terrifier. The series has grown on me. Art the Clown has kind of grown on me. I mean, there's no other, like I said, slasher films. I'm not a big slasher fan, but there's no other really slashers that are doing what they're doing. They're pushing the envelope, which I think needs to be done in horror. You always need to kind of push that envelope. Going back to old exploitation films like Cannibal Holocaust and Cannibal Ferox and Eaten Alive and all of that. You got to go back and down these dark alleys and really get into it, get into the gore, get into the guts. Put some skin into the game moving. That's another favorite movie of mine right now is going on is on movie stream. I do recommend watching it. It is produced by the same people that produced Terrified 2 and 3, Fuzz in the Lens. It also is directed by, Michael Levy. I mean, that's who it's directed by. Sorry, not produced. It's directed by Michael Levy, who produced Terrified 2 and 3. Fuzz in the Lens, And I do recommend, like I said, watching this. It has everybody that you could possibly imagine in the horror world makes a cameo. It's wild. I can't praise it enough. It's a very fun film. Same thing with that new Steamboat Willie film there that he made. I'm just gonna blank on the name because there's a few of them, but it's not the Mousetrap one; it's the other one, and I thought that was really clever done too. Screamboat, I think, yeah, Screamboat. I like that. I like those kind of films. So I do recommend people, like I said, you know, um, checking some of these out. But it's time to get into other horrors. more visceral horrors, more gritty horrors. Stuff from the foreign market. Like Martyrs or Frontiers, High Tension. You know, um, I was actually a big fan of Anatomy of Hell. You know, bunch of these films, and I do recommend going through Irreversible is another one if you can watch that, and watch both versions. Watch the first one in its originality, and then watch the chronological version of the events. And this way, it really makes sense. Um, but also, I find these films to be a little bit different than the American film. They're not as fun. They're not as happy. There's not as guts and glory. They're really dark, despair, and deep films. They're ending. So it makes it more scary. It really does. But I do recommend people check that out. Any of those films. But also, like I said, I mentioned Cannibal Holocaust. Check that out. Watch that. It's streaming. It is a good flick. If the animal thing held you up, watch the animal cruelty version. And I'm telling you, it's the original found footage film. There's nothing quite like it because at that time, found footage wasn't really a thing. You got to remember, Blair Witch Project hadn't been invented yet, right? That would be probably the first modern, we would say, found footage film. But originally, the original footage would be that Cannibal Holocaust, where they, find the rail, and it puts on a lot of good questions, social questions, about modern society in a whole, what humanity does, what we think of other, people that might not be the same. It really plays down some alleys, and it shows kind of the brutality of what modern man has become. A lot of things we think about is probably how that was, territories and things being taken over, tribes being just, tortured and so forth. So, at the end of the day, I don't feel bad for those people without any spoilers. It's just, it's kind of a good revenge flick too. Speaking of revenge flicks, Last House on the Left, great film. I Spit on Your Grave, even better in my opinion. But I like a good revenge film. Okay, I think a good revenge horror film, it serves a purpose. It shows, people overcoming something that it's almost near impossible, but then it makes you feel satisfaction. Especially like in I Spin Your Grave, both the original and the modern. You feel for that person so much that you're happy when they, get that revenge. When they get that retribution. You almost cheer for them. You want to cheer for them. And it's a weird way because obviously nobody wants to cheer for murder, but in this case, like these people have gone through hell, right? They've been raped, tortured, beaten, held captive. They come out of this on the other side, and they're angry, and they just they go to war. Um, Especially like I said, those Spit in Your Grave ones, really, really. I mean, some of the scenes are hard to watch because of the graphic nature of the events. I do viewer discretion advised on those is because, they can be triggering. A lot of these movies can be triggering. Not the movie itself, not the plot, but there's scenes in all these movies, that can be triggering to certain folks if they've had, any trauma of sorts of different variations in their past or present or whatever's going on. The foreign market especially, they really don't put a lot of caps on what goes on. I mean, it's all very like bam, oh my god, so real. It's almost too real in some sense for some people. I've been told. I unfortunately have been kind of a little bit desensitized to it. I was watching it all with the cinematic eye. How did they film that? I'm thinking to myself, how did they get that shot? How did they do it all in one shot? How many takes did that take? What did they use for a camera? What was the lighting like? Was that a studio? Was that on scene? What was the set props? How did they do that? Like I started thinking all these other things, so I look at it differently as I dissect something that I watch. But But yeah, the horror, it's an interesting genre because of that. You have very traumatic or very dangerous or very horrific events happening right before your eyes. But there's a safety net, right? There's a blanket because it's not real. It's cinematic. It's not the news. It's not someone next door. But it makes you start thinking, right? It makes you start wondering. You start looking around and, you see shadows move or you hear bumps in the night. All these things, start to come into play, when you watch a scary movie, right? And especially if you're alone, you start to, your mind starts to become its worst enemy. And, that's where, it becomes a little fun almost, right? People enjoy being scared. That's why, people go to haunted houses. They do all these things. They enjoy the thrill. They enjoy the rush. They enjoy the bump. They enjoy the adrenaline. And I think that's the same with watching, some of these movies. Some of them, like I said, scary. Some of them like psychological thrillers. It all depends on what kind of horror movie you like. You can be scared via jump scare. You can be scared via thought of, all this stuff that's going on. Like I said, that's really psychological. You can be scared through, just eerie occurrences or something really realistic being shown. There's a lot that can be, different ways of scare tactics when it comes to a horror film. And what scares one person might not scare another. I mean, you could have a complete phobia or a clown. So everything with a clown from, Terrified to It scares the shit out of you, where the next person loves clowns. So these are some of their favorite characters in movies. It's very subjective. Like, we used to talk a lot about pro wrestling. Very subjective. What somebody likes might not necessarily be what you like. So you kind of just move on. Um, I don't really believe in bad horror films. I believe movies can be made or executed poorly. Scripts can be done poorly, but I don't believe in bad movies. I mean, I'm not a fan of the Halloween films, but I know people that are, so I can say to them that they're good. Some people love them. Some people love that whole thing. They'll just keep going. They want more Michael. They don't really care. Other people are like, no. I'm a big Return of the Living Dead fan. I'm dreading what they're gonna do with a remake or a reboot of that. Really am. How they're gonna work that, because you're never gonna beat that original cast. I met them all recently at a con. That same one, in CT Horror, they were all out there, and it was really cool listening to them all talking about that film. And Linnea Quigley, she's been in so many films and so many things. It's Her wisdom is great, and Matthews too. From his Friday the 13th series all the way down to that, he played iconic roles. So it was great talking to both of them and listening to them, especially all the other people, the people that played Tarman and all the characters. There was about like 7 of them in total. Can't remember all their names. I did get them to sign my Shout Factory exclusive poster though. Like I said, big into the physical media, especially when it comes with these posters and so forth. Because you can get them signed. It's cool. It's a cool thing to have. It's a cool thing to own. Cool piece. But yeah, there is actually some other things if people are interested. In the Mouth of Madness, if you remember that film, it's an older film about an author who does writing and such, and he ends up going missing. And the detectives, a private eye goes after him. People are just engulfed by this guy's writing to the point that they start, losing their minds. And that's being re-released now by Arrow 4K, Ultra HD, and that will come with another host of special editions and such. That's coming out next week, I believe, at the end. I also seen Ultra HD um Halloween 3 Steelbook, which again I don't know if I'm gonna bite on it. I hate owning multiple copies unless it really comes with something extra or something better, like the poster, the book, something. Now, granted, Mouth of Madness, I do own another Shout Factory version of it, but it's not nowhere near this, the collector's edition, as this one comes with, a book and so forth. But and new commissioned artwork as well. I do like the slipcases. I'm kind of a sucker for slipcases. Um, but that's what we've been kind of watching. Like I said, going back, checking out some of these films, older films, newer films. Nightbreed was another one. It's on my list. I actually have it in the other room to watch. I might watch that tonight. You know, um, if you are following along on Facebook, we can't still post live there, but we are doing, the Sinners and Saints challenge, where we're just watching a horror movie a day. You can follow along with us, see what we're watching. If you want to discuss it, even come on the show and discuss it. You're more than welcome to. We can always host something and have you come on the show and talk about it. We love talking horror with folks. Right now, Victor Sin is not on. He's taking a little hiatus from Horror Nights, but I, obviously I'm still here running in the helm, full steam ahead. It is spooky season. We aren't going anywhere. There's like I said, a lot of stuff going on. If you're into the collectibles, go after those Negas. The Terrifier one, the blood soaked one from Walmart. Very hard to find right now, but a lot of people are finding them, but they are being scalped off for like almost $80, $90 on eBay. It's crazy. I had at one point tried to buy this thing 6 times. Placed the order in one Walmart, got canceled. They couldn't find it. Placed it in another Walmart, canceled, couldn't find it. Placed it in another one, out of state. They canceled my order. There was another one, and then finally there was one more, and I placed the order because my friend was going to that store to get a figure or to see if they had it. And I saw that they had it, so I bought it. Said you could just go pick it up. They canceled my order, but when my friend went there, they were putting it on the shelf, so he just grabbed it for me and got it. Um, but also the Trick or Treat Studios Terrifier toys are out as well. I noticed Terrifier 2 figures. There's like 4 of them. They have the eye popping action and all these other ones. Pretty cool stuff. Mezco makes one too, which I am waiting upon. I think it's supposed to arrive tomorrow. Someone said I have to get the Mezco Terrifier figure, the Arthur Clown. It's just much more better than the NECA there. It has everything. So I'm gonna be checking that out, probably unboxing it, doing a video with that. The Michael Myers are out. I know I've seen Halloween H2O any which way on shelves. Grab myself one of them. If you're into collecting, now's the time. There's a bunch of stuff being put out, for this season and stuff that's pre-ordering too. I know they're going to be doing a resurrection, which if you're into Michael Myers, again, why don't we need it? We need another ultimate. We need actually a 4 and 5. We need an actual 1 too. I don't think we have an ultimate 1. We have an ultimate 2018. But we don't have an ultimate 1, and we don't have an ultimate 4 and 5. Oh no, yeah, no 4 and 5. We just have 6. Curse of, yeah, 6 of Curse of H2O 2. We have a few 2s. We have the cloth 2 and then the ultimate 2. Then we have another 2 that comes with Dr. Loomis. But like I said, we like to do it all. We like movies. We like horror. We like horror movies. We like the figures, the collectibles, the conventions. We'll be heading out to 2 cons in November. Going to be going to Creature Feature and Monster Mania, both in Pennsylvania. It's going to be a great time. A lot of great guests. Looking forward to meeting a lot of these Texas Chainsaw Massacre people. Now the cinematographer from the original one is going to be there. It's going to be great. Second one, a lot of people, Karate Kid, they're having also going to be having a reunion of sorts for X Files. Almost everybody's out there. It's going to be wild. That's another going to be a good time. Can't wait. Very excited for all of this stuff going on and going down at these cons coming up. Very excited for it all. So honestly, can't wait. I suggest people stay tuned. If you're into horror, check us out. We'll be running every night, talking a little bit about things. What are your favorite movies? I want to know, what are people watching out there? What do people like? What do people enjoy? Maybe it's something I haven't heard of. Maybe it's a found footage film I haven't heard of. Maybe it's something on Tubi. Maybe it's a short film. Maybe it's an independent film. Maybe maybe it's your own film. Drop it in the comments. Let me know what you like. Let me know what you like to listen to. Let me know what you like to watch for horror movies. I want to watch what you're watching. I want to see what you're seeing. Maybe there's something, like I said, I haven't stumbled upon yet that I can, enjoy. Thank you for watching tonight. And as always, stay spooky.